He's going to join us live in a few moments on this and more coming up shortly here. First, however, history in the making. For the wrong reasons, the son of a sitting president has been indicted. Hunter Biden indicted on 3 criminal counts tied to possession of a gun, coming just weeks after the collapse of a plea deal with federal prosecutors. And that's where we start the morning. It's Friday. You've made it. Dana's got the day off today. I'm Bill Hemmer live here today. And good morning to you.
Thinking about Dana this morning. Good to be here with you. I said it when I saw you this morning outside of our office. This is going to be a big news day.
Big day.
It's Friday, but get ready for it. All right. I'm Sandra Smith, and this is America's Newsroom. It is unprecedented, marking the first ever indictment of a sitting president's child, and the timing could not be worse for the president, setting the stage for a potential trial during his campaign for re-election, not to mention the Republican impeachment inquiry that is already underway.
So prosecutors allege that Hunter lied on a federal government form when buying a gun where he claimed that he was not using drugs. If convicted, he could face up to 25 years in federal prison and $750,000 in fines. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy shutting down reporters who tried to question whether or not the evidence backs up the charges.
Do you think the president lied when he said
that an impeachable is lying and impeachable?
Well, you want to know. I'm not saying impeachment. All I'm saying is I would like to know answers to these questions. The American public ought to know, and that's what impeachment inquiry provides.
Okay, so that was yesterday on Capitol Hill. The New York Post this morning summating up best on the front page. There it is, son of a gun. But there could be even more legal troubles ahead for Hunter Biden, with federal tax charges possibly looming on the horizon. David Spunt is reporting live at the Justice Department. He kicks things off on this for us this morning. Hi, David.
Hi, Sandra. Good morning to you. One day after this indictment, as you just mentioned, the story somewhat moves to the future to see what Hunter Biden may face in other indictments in other districts. We know that other charges may be on the table because special counsel David Weiss said so in black and white in a court filing last month, that the tax charges are still on the table, perhaps in California or Washington, D.C. But this indictment yesterday is about that gun charge. Back in 2018, Hunter Biden filled out that form before purchasing the gun in Delaware. These are 3 felony counts, 2 are false statements. The third is possession of the gun. According to the special counsel's office, Biden in 2018 lied on that federal form to purchase a gun when he said he was not addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, and any other controlled substance, when in fact he knew that statement was false. The second charge, Sandra, is a false statement made to a person who worked at the Delaware gun shop. The third is actually owning the gun when unlawfully using illegal substances. The charges could put him behind bars for 25 years. Hunter Biden and the Justice Department hoped to avoid this day when they met in court in Delaware back in July. The plea deal fell apart in a very public way, Sandra, when the government would not guarantee that Hunter would be immune from any future prosecutions. Last night, his attorney criticized the charges.
I can tell you that Hunter did not share his business with his dad. I can tell you that he did not share money from his businesses with his dad. And as the evidence out there, his dad, like all good parents, tried to help Hunter when Hunter needed that help.
Okay, so Abby Lowell used the word sharing business with his son, or sharing money from his business with his son. That's different than what President Biden said on tape when he was a candidate on the 2020 campaign trail, saying, quote, "I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings." Now, this may not be the only indictment. As I said, we're looking for potential charges in California. The reason in California on potential tax charges, that's where Hunter Biden has lived over the past few years. Also potentially tax charges in Washington, D.C., where he lived during his father's vice presidency. Sandra, Bill.
A lot to take in there. David Spunt at the Justice Department. Thank you.
Jonathan Turley joins us now. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for your time. We're going to wear you out in the end after all these court cases here. This is Abby Lowell. We heard a little bit in David's report there, but it seems to be a bit of a defense that he's forming in this answer on CNN yesterday. Watch.
The law says whether or not the person is possessing the gun while they are addicted. There is ambiguity in that statute, which we will have to pursue if this case continues. At the time that he purchased this gun, I don't think there's evidence that that's when he was suffering. When you refer to his book, he had just come out of rehabilitation.
He says 2 things there, the timetable and the definition of the statute. What do you think of that?
I don't think there's as much ambiguity as being suggested. There's an opportunistic use here of Hunter Biden's addiction. You know, it's being used to excuse his actions, saying, well, he was just an addict. This is part of what addicts do. And then when he's charged, he says, well, he wasn't an addict during that period. So you can't use that as a condition. I think it's going to be a hard case to make. And the question is how they will go about proving it. But they can certainly challenge that. The more interesting challenge is whether Hunter Biden will challenge the underlying statute. In various courts, you have people who lost gun possession rights because they had drug use or drug possession counts. One of those led to the declaration that the underlying statute was unconstitutional under the Second Amendment. For Hunter Biden to replicate that defense, he would have to challenge a law that his father has enthusiastically supported and use cases that his father has vigorously condemned under the Second Amendment. So this could get very odd very quickly.
Jonathan, good morning to you. And real quickly, this is President Biden. He chose to ignore the opportunity to comment on his son. Listen.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Mr. President, you have a platform full of reporters.
Perhaps not shocking, but given the opportunity yesterday following that speech in Maryland, he did not comment. I want to ask you about the possibility of real jail time. We're running that banner there. Hunter may face 25-year sentence, $750,000 fine. Saul Weisenberg, our colleague here at the Fox News channel, former deputy independent counsel, he seems to be throwing cold water on that idea. Do you believe it's a possibility he could serve real jail time?
No, I said when the indictment came out that, first of all, the 25-year period is unrealistic. He's a first offender, but more importantly, these are not going to be daisy-chained. They're not going to run consecutively. They would run concurrently, even if he's convicted on all three. As a first offender, he would then get a substantial reduction from the maximum. But there is a real chance that he would get no jail time at all. The question is whether this is just the start of a series of indictments and whether he's looking at some other charges coming down the pike.
Okay, would that come in the 30 seconds we have left here? Would that come from James Comer's impeachment inquiry if you get into more bank records, et cetera?
Well, there's other torpedoes in the water with regard to charges, like the AFERA charge, the tax charges. The Department of Justice curiously allowed many of the statute of limitations to run, so he's at less risk than, frankly, he should be. But all of this just reinforces Speaker McCarthy's view that we need to do an impeachment inquiry. There is still a artificially reduced scope of crimes here that Hunter is facing. Congress is now in a position to get answers to these questions. Their power is truly at its apex once they start an impeachment inquiry. Okay.
Professor, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
More to come. Nice to see you, Jonathan Turley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep the phone handy.
Right.
Likely call you back soon. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will be leading a tour of the Roosevelt Hotel here in New York City, fumbling with waves of asylum seekers while big blue cities from coast to coast are dealing with their own influx of migrants. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says she fears the day planes arrive in her city.
What they're trying to do is destabilize cities because it's Chicago, it's Washington, D.C., it's New York. It's the narrative that these are Democratic-run cities and that we don't know how to govern and that everything is chaotic here. We live in a city that welcomes immigrants. And so I think we have been able to handle it. But I am fearful that any day planes could start coming.
Stark shift from her touting L.A. as a sanctuary city. Back in June, she said L.A. will not be swayed or moved by petty politicians playing with human lives. We are a city that seeks to treat all people with dignity and compassion.
See how much that holds up right over time. I think what Ocasio-Cortez will find over there, the Roosevelt Hotel, is an absolute mess.
I pass by every day.
Yeah, on the sidewalk, you see it. Inside the hotel, well, we can't get in because you need permission. But remember what the Democratic mayor has said. He said the White House has failed them. But he doesn't call out Joe Biden by name.
You've made that point.
And the White House said on Monday, you're doing it wrong. Yeah. You're the one screwing this up. So They're asking us to be patient. New York has been patient.
Tell that to the businesses.
How much longer will they withstand this?
Who have had to shut their doors because you can't access them where all those migrants are around the block there at the Roosevelt Hotel.
Fair enough. Okay, much more to get to, including this now. Watch out.
I'm extremely frustrated and disappointed, and I think the UAW leadership needs to get to the table because we need to get this resolved.
So just what the wobbly U.S. economy does not need, a strike that will cost billions of dollars in damage. It's taking across 3 battleground states, sending political shockwaves potentially on the Biden campaign. So we'll get more on the fallout on that coming up here. Smitty?
Plus, battening down the hatches for Hurricane Lee, now taking direct aim at New England. Here it comes, the latest on its track.
Also, we got some brand new polling on the critical early voting state of South Carolina. How much stock do we put in them today? Who better to ask than the Senator, Tim Scott? He's next, live.
Heads Carolina, tails California, somewhere greener, somewhere warmer, up in the mountains. Union! Union! Mighty! Union! Union! Mighty!
All right, well, roughly 13,000 auto workers walking the picket line overnight at 3 plants in Ohio, Michigan, and Missouri. The historic move coming less than 2 weeks after President Biden called a strike unlikely. The strike is unfolding across 3 major battleground states, each of which will be critical to his reelection in 2024. Fox Business' Edward Lawrence, he's live at the White House. He's got the very latest on this, setting up for quite a day here, Edward.
Exactly. And Sandra, a White House official telling me we will hear from the president specifically about this strike. It might not be first thing this morning, but we are going to hear about this. Now, the White House being updated on exactly where things stand, but the union so far has not asked the president to get involved. For the first time ever, the strike targeting the big 3 automakers at the same time, Ford, GM, and Stellantis, which owns Chrysler. You said 13,000 walkouts today at plants making the Ford Bronco, Jeep Wrangler, and Chevy Colorado. Not a full strike as of yet. Now, within the last 30 minutes, the GM CEO, Mary Barra, told Fox Business the offer must be good for both sides, not one that will bankrupt the companies.
I'm extremely frustrated and disappointed, and I think the UAW leadership needs to get to the table because we need to get this resolved. And what we need to do is problem solve it. I know the team at the GM, both UAW and GM, has been working on it, but there's some key issues we just need to get together, talk, and get done.
So the U.S. Chamber of Commerce president delivering a harsh statement on the strike, saying the UAW strike and indeed the summer of strikes is the natural result of the Biden administration's whole of government approach to promoting unionization at all costs. For the 94% of American private sector workers not in a union, the costs are stacking up. And you may remember this. Listen.
Mr. President, are you worried about an auto strike? An auto strike? UAW? Come over. A strike.
Yeah, we'll see how worried he is later on today. The two sides, they are very far apart. Sandra?
What a moment this is. Edward Lawrence, thank you.
So economy is still #1 now. Wall Street Journal writes this today about our next guest, Senator Tim Scott. Can Tim Scott rev up the economy? The senator's new plan is a good start, but too cautious. Tim Scott's with me now. Senator, good morning. Thank you for your time. Let's try and barrel through a bunch of things right now. Nice to see you. You want to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. You want to return spending levels to pre-pandemic days, okay? Wall Street Journal says you got to go bigger to stand out. What do you think of that point?
Well, number one, we are going bigger. Bigger simply means let's build, not borrow. And by extending the tax cuts, we save $2 trillion for the American families. That is the biggest tax cut in the history of our country, and I wrote the bill. That's why I want to make sure that we extend those tax cuts. We also need to make sure that small businesses continue to receive benefits from lower taxes. My Opportunity Zones 2.0 would attract manufacturing back to our country, and if they land in an opportunity zone, they would see their profits go down. They would see their taxes on their profits go down by 30%. We have to cut spending, cut taxes and cut government. At the same time, we can grow our economy at 5% GDP growth, creating 10 million new jobs and unleashing America's energy now. Not just our future, but our now. That's really important for American workers.
Kudos to you for at least having an idea, okay? However, you know, even your campaign manager said, and you got some work to do out there, looking at what's happening in Iowa and New Hampshire and your home state of South Carolina. Your campaign manager says ignore the national polls. They don't matter. State polls matter. But in your home state of South Carolina, we got Donald Trump at 46%. We got Nikki Haley at 18%, and you were sitting there at 10%. How are you going to change that?
Well, very easily. We have been campaigning in Iowa. We're in third place, very close to second place. In New Hampshire, where we spent the balance of our time, we are moving up in the polls there. But the good news is polls don't vote, but people do. The most important designation is the designation that happens when we are the nominee. It says we beat Joe Biden. That is the most important way that we can measure our impact and our success. I'm excited about where we are. I'm not watching the polls. We are not having a national campaign. We're running in 3 states, Iowa first, New Hampshire, and then we'll bring it home with momentum to South Carolina.
Okay, but
the
even,
good news is...
The good news is...
Yeah, the good news is the more I campaign, the better off we are. We've been spending our time and we're getting really good results where we invest our time. We'll continue to see the numbers improve. But let's not worry about the numbers. We're going to continue to make sure that America understands there's a way to have an optimistic, positive messenger with a backbone talking about conservative principles.
Okay, I apologize for interrupting you there. But our own polling shows Donald Trump has actually gained month to month. He's now at 60% national level. Now, this is what we also find. When you dig into our numbers that we released yesterday, among suburban women now, call 44 guys, Joe Biden's down 12 points, Donald Trump's up 13. Among African-American voters, Joe Biden's down 10, Trump's up 7. Hispanic voters, Biden down 5 and Donald Trump is up 7. Again, the work you must do to overcome this seems to be significant.
Well, the good news is we have enough time to get it done. We're in the third quarter of the game. We're heading into the fourth quarter in about 30 or 45 more days. I'm looking forward to it. I am not worried whatsoever. What I am is I'm excited because I know America can do for anyone what she's done for me. We're going to focus on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting the America we all love. That starts with backing the blue, closing the southern border, and standing toe-to-toe with China. It's not the strength of President Xi that's the problem. It's the weakness of Joe Biden. That's our problem.
Okay, all right. In your own words, right? You're talking about us borrowing and China building, right? I do think I have read and heard that from you. Randy Weingartner, head of the teachers union, made a comment this week. And she was talking about segregation. I just want to play this and get your reaction because you've been hot on the issue of race and education as well. Watch here.
Post-Brown v. Board of Education, those same words you hear today. I was kind of gobsmacked when I was talking to Southern Poverty Law Center, and they showed me the same words: choice, parental rights, an attempt to divide parents versus teachers. And that point, it was white parents versus other parents.
You said with a broad stroke here, we're just talking about parental rights and whether or not students should have more rights than their parents, or actually the schools should have more authority than the parents. And compared to the segregation, what do you think of that comparison?
I think it's just disgusting. Here's what we've heard from Randy Weingartner consistently. They are standing in the schoolhouse door, the teachers' unions, blocking poor kids in failing schools. It's like having kids in a house that's on fire and saying we're not going to rescue a single child until we rescue them all. And what we've seen is a devastation in big blue cities. You see the crime, you see high unemployment, and you see the devastation of hopeless environments. Why? Because they've trapped kids in failing schools, and hope deferred makes the heart sick. The devastation can end on day one when we allow choice and competition in our K through 12 education. When parents have a choice, kids have the best chance to succeed. And the thing that stands in the way are teachers' unions. We must break the backs of teachers' unions by introducing public-private virtual school choice so that parents get the voice they deserve.
Well, you've got an interesting message. And as I pointed out, you got some work to do, and I know you're aware of that. You're going to get an opportunity about 2 weeks, though, when our Fox debate kicks off on Fox Business. Senator, thank you for your time. And as a reminder to viewers at home, Dana will be on stage with Stuart Varney, and also the hosts from Univision will be there as well, alongside them, Ilya Calderon. That's on September 27th, Simi Valley, California. Don't miss it. We'll be talking about that a lot, Smitty, in the next 2 weeks. Thank you, Senator.
At the same time, I don't criticize those poor parents out there that have been ginned up. There's a lot of misunderstanding, misrepresentation out there because people are weaponizing these grievances against vulnerable communities.
Growing controversy in California over bills focusing on gay and transgender children, why critics are calling the legislation an undercut of religious freedoms. Plus, it's prime time for the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yeah,
Coach Deion Sanders is turning around the college football team, but will it last? Emma.
Back so far.
Well, right now it's racing northward, okay? So it's moved out of Bermuda's range, so still some kicking up some surf there. We're about 500 miles south of Nantucket. And we'll watch this storm make its way across the coastal eastern seaboard of the United States. But it looks like the landfall eventually is eastern Maine into the Maritimes of Canada, so Nova Scotia. We got about 24 hours here left.
So I've been out there. I think I've done 20 of these out in the field, right? And every storm is different. And you don't know how storms interact with land until it happens.
That's right. I was just going to say, don't sell yourself short. He started in 2005 here at Fox News, which, remember back to 2005, this was the most prolific storm year. We had 27 named storms. We had to go with the Greek alphabet that year. Katrina, Rita, think back to that season.
Yeah, you're right.
What's your most memorable storm?
I mean, Katrina was a big one, certainly, but I think Hurricane Floyd in the late 1990s toward Jacksonville was a phenomenal storm because it was a Cat 5 coming on board, and then she just downgraded and took a northern turn and just went up the coast. But I mean, this was Wilmington 2018, okay? That's what you see behind you. And the thing about this storm, Amy, is it wasn't the wind, it wasn't the storm surge, it was the rainfall and the flooding that impacted North Carolina after that.
Every storm has its hallmark, and the thing about hurricanes and storms like this is they can create wild twists and turns when you're in the field like that. So you can see how much rain you had to handle in that storm. I want to mention here at Fox Weather, you know, we are into this season, which has been so busy, way ahead of schedule. It's been so above average in so many ways that it'll turn out to be historic on its own. I don't know if it's going to be competitive with 2005, but hurricanes and other natural hazards so far this season, we are at $23 billion disasters in America. FEMA could run out of money. We're at such a limit with what's
that's
happened.
why you're here. That's why I got you on the app, right? All right.
Hey,
Amy, okay, thank you for your time.
We appreciate
I'm
it.
thinking a wind event for a lot of folks in the Northeast mostly. Am I right or am I wrong?
We'll be here for it. Fox Weather, yes. Wind and waves. Big surfs along the eastern seaboard. It's not a weekend to get into the water, even though it is the last weekend of summer.
You
Steer
guys are
clear.
here 24 hours a day, too, so love it. Nice to see you, Amy.
The door's always open.
Cool.
Bill.
All right. Thank you for your time.
You got it.
Back to Smitty across the way now. Sandra.
Well done, you two. Loved that update. Meanwhile, big tech raising the potential risks of artificial intelligence in a closed-door meeting on Capitol Hill. Some industry titans are urging lawmakers to regulate and do something about AI right now.
Or agree that this is something that we need the government's leadership on. Some disagreement about how it should happen, but unanimity in that this is important and urgent.
Tristan Harris was in the room where it all went down. He's also the co-founder and executive director of the Center for Humane Technology. Thank you, Tristan, for joining us. Why this urgency suddenly are we hearing?
Yeah, I think, you showed Sam Altman in that hearing, the CEO of OpenAI. Something he said during the hearing was, if you go back, Sarah, to 2020 and ask yourself 3 years from now, in 2023, Do you think AI will be capable of passing the MCATs, passing the bar exam, taking a sketch of a website on a napkin and actually turning it into a live website, generating fake images and video at scale? You would have never believed that those things were possible. And that's because the exponential curve of how fast AI is going is so much faster than our brains can really predict. So do you think that now in 2023, that we are accurately anticipating the kind of capabilities that AI will have in 2026? And I think the answer is no. And the reason that we have to, and this meeting that Senator Schumer, Rounds, Heinrich, and Young hosted was unprecedented. It was called the Insight Forum. The senators that came, they sat in the audience and they just listened. They were not grandstanding. This was not about getting a 3-minute social media clip. This was about asking ourselves, this is that point in the movie when humanity birthed this thing called AI. And if it was in a movie, you'd have this meeting where all the people who were involved in building it would somehow meet with the government and say, how do we get this right? And it's like the Industrial Revolution. Like, imagine if we consciously said, how do we do the Industrial Revolution? Maybe we could avoid 100 years of child labor. If we consciously do AI, how can we avoid these, the peril that everybody talks about
like
that we've been worried about?
But like any time you worry that lawmakers have the extent of knowledge that would be needed to regulate artificial intelligence, do they know enough to really regulate around it? I want to play this out. This is Senator Richard Blumenthal, because these senators were actually getting slammed for not allowing the public in on this summit. Listen.
Billionaires in there talking about the most powerful technology known to mankind. People are very suspicious of what's happening behind closed doors. Can you explain why?
My hope is that every one of those executives who are here this morning will agree to come before my subcommittee. My hope is that these executives will agree to do the same in public, under oath, before the subcommittee on privacy and tech.
Because that's really important right now, right? That the American public is brought along with our education of all this, so we know what is coming.
Oh, I 100% agree. And those hearings that Senator Blumenthal and others have been hosting should continue, absolutely. I think, when I talked to Senator Schumer about hosting this meeting, what he said, this came from a self-awareness that this is moving, as I said, on an exponential curve that's so fast that we can't do the traditional process of, doing 5 years of hearings and regulate after that. And even Elon Musk said, I believe that we need to probably have some kind of federal agency. He said, we need an FAA, we need an FDA, and even though people he knows wants to remove the FDA and there's many problems with it, he thinks we're still better off having some kind of guardrails or referee. And that's what we need now. And if we really want to beat China,
and to that point, that's another huge conversation where China's going with this and how far ahead they are with it. Thank you very much, Tristan. All really good stuff, and we'll keep watching it.
Thank you so much.
Meanwhile, Elon Musk took this question from our own Hillary Vaughn. Listen.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I got...
Okay. Do we have it?
That's all, Mr. Musk?
I hope not. There is some chance that above zero that AI will kill us all. I think it's low, but there's some chance. I think we should also consider the fragility of human civilization.
Think AI is going to kill us all?
Yeah, that was the question.
I hope not.
Us too. Enjoy the weekend. Hey, I'm back, by the way.
I thought that was fantastic.
Quick time out. We'll do it again.
Love that.
We'll always been waiting for that day, all right, with Amy. Okay. Wounded Warriors in the road to recovery, uniting in friendly competition. This is so awesome, inspiring the world. Benjamin Hall joins us from the Invictus Games live in Germany coming up here. Also, President Biden avoiding questions again, and big questions out there, too, about age and electability. Carly Shimkus and Brian Brenberg will size it all up for us coming up now. Hey, guys, what's happening?
Защитите стратегические объекты.
Доброй ночи всем.
Это 2. Работяга.
В руках есть.
Бомба установлена.
На респираторе. Угу. Рукав, респа.
Наш отряд уничтожен. Миссия провалена.
Егорка.
Защитите стратегические объекты.
Одерка. За кубиком. Я так полегчил. Поздно.
Наш отряд разбит. Мы проиграли. Защитите стратегические объекты.
Да ну нах. Бешеный медик. Скончался.
Бомба установлена. Наш отряд разбит. Мы проиграли. Взорвите один из объектов противника. Бомба взята.
Двойные, там заборку.
Бомба потеряна. Бомба взята. Команда противника разбита. Миссия выполнена. Установите бомбу. Бомба взята. Бомба потеряна.
Псина, блять. Дади.
Наш отряд уничтожен. Миссия провалена.
Один медик рашит, блядь, всех. Да, одному медику проигрываем, блядь, всей толпой.
Бомба взята.
Ну что, готовы? Осторожно, граната!
Рукав двой.
Граната пошла!
Команда уничтожена. Мы проиграли раунд.
Две пульки.
Защитите стратегические объекты.